Hi everyone, my name is Rachel and I'm on the pastoral team at the Way Church here in Vancouver, and we're so glad that you've decided to tune in today. Our prayer is that the message that you're about to listen to strengthens you and helps you take a step in your discipleship towards Jesus. And each week throughout the summer, our teaching team has been invited to share a message that's particularly on their hearts, and so we hope that it encourages you and helps you see Jesus more clearly. We'll talk soon.
All right, today's scripture reading is from Matthew 11:28-30. Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. This is the word of the Lord. Pastor Elita, you can come on up.
Thank you. Well, good morning, everybody. I'm so happy to be here with y'all. Well, here we are, y'all. It is August the 24th. Summer is winding down and fall is on the horizon. If you were awake early enough this week, you may have noticed that we got kind of like our first whiff of cool air in the mornings. Kind of exciting, kind of sad. And I don't know about you, but something inside of me feels like it's trying to kind of like put on the brakes a little bit, like trying to hold on to summer just a little bit longer. Like, can the days just stretch a little more? And part of that's probably because I really like the sun, I like the heat, all of that. But I also think that a huge part of it is that when I think of summer, and maybe you're this way too, but when I think of summer, I tend to think of rest. And, maybe that's because I'm a product of the school system, and so the school calendar is like deeply ingrained in the way that my brain thinks. Like my brain tells me, summer equals rest. It's like this permanent habit loop in my brain. Even though I'm a real life adult with an actual job, I still think summer is like sleeping in and holidays and all those things. But for whatever reason, I think that maybe for many of us who grew up in North America anyways, we instinctively link summer with rest, almost as if summertime is the definition of rest. And I wonder if this isn't especially true for those of us who live here, like in the Pacific Northwest. Because come on, y'all, like these days, these are our glory days, June, July, August. I would argue, and we could have the debate later, but I would argue that there is nowhere more beautiful on planet Earth than where we live during the summer. Nothing beats summer here. And for many of us, these are the months that we look forward to all year long. This is what you hear people say when it's raining outside. You're like, just wait. Summer's coming, summer's coming. And so summer's here, and the tendency for us is to pack in as much as we possibly can, right? Like, hit all the lakes, go to all the beaches, try to find that one spot that nobody else knows about, but really everybody else knows about. Go on all the hikes. Okay, that one, if you know me at all, some of you do. I don't really hike. 2 words, bears, cougars. But I know that some of you do. That's awesome. But the point is that for those of us who live in the Pacific Northwest, especially here in Vancouver, once summer hits, like we're all in. We find a different gear and we want to do all the things. And I think it's because these summer activities help us in a way to feel rested. Like they feel restful to us. But again, here we are. It's the end of August and we are just staring down the barrel at September. And I have found myself wondering, and I think that this kind of happens almost every year for me at this time, but I have found myself wondering why it is that I bank so much on certain external things to give me rest. And I'm not just talking about summer. It's not just a summer thing, because we can all turn to different things at any given time, hoping that they're going to refuel us, to give us rest, or maybe at least the distraction or the escape that we're hoping for, or that we think we need. And that could be any number of things. I mean, it could be Netflix, it could be social media, food, shopping, alcohol, traveling, vacation. And listen, I'm not saying any of those things in moderation are bad things, but we might turn to these because they give us a certain kind of illusion of feeling rested. But really, all of those things that I've just named are temporary. We know this. Because at some point, that feeling of needing rest always inevitably returns. Like at some point down the line, we're going to feel it deep inside of us again. So here's the question I want to pitch out to us in our time together this morning. Could it be that we were made for a deeper kind of rest than anything that the world could give us? Thank you, Sharissa, for reading our text today. I want to read it again so it's fresh in our minds. We just have 2 verses, and these are the words of Jesus. He was speaking to his disciples, and so here we go. These are the words. He says, "Come to me, all of you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light." So here's what I want to propose to you. I want to propose that we were made for a deeper kind of rest, a better kind of rest. And it's the kind that is not temporary. It's not found through any external thing. And the good news is that Jesus tells us exactly how we can find this kind of rest. And so he invites us to do 2 things. We just heard it. But he tells us first that we're to come to him, and second, that we're to take on his yoke. And so very simply today, we're just going to talk about those 2 things in the next few minutes. And then we're going to end our time together by just considering a few suggestions for how we could practically live into this, okay? So here's the first thing that Jesus invites us to do to find the rest that we were made for. First, he says, come to him, come to me, come to Jesus. Verse 28 again, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." He begins by saying, "Come to me," to those who are weary and those who are burdened. And I would argue that no matter where you're at in life right now, where you have been, this, I think, covers the full spectrum of humanity. So let me explain. So the word weary, it's a word that means that we're fatigued from working hard. It indicates like a physical weariness. You've been doing your job, you've been doing it well, but you're tired. You're just tired. That's what weary is. Now, the word burdened means something different. It's a word that means to load down. You could maybe imagine it in your mind with me like a ship that's loaded down carrying containers to a port. But actually, in Jesus' day, when he would have used this illustration, for many of them, they would have probably brought to mind an animal, like a horse or a donkey, that would have been loaded down with things, with burdens to carry. That's what they were called. They were loaded down with burdens to carry. But the word actually means even more than just simply being like loaded down with stuff. The word actually indicates being overburdened, of taking on too much, of being loaded down too much for the ship or the horse to really be able to handle. So it isn't just as simple as come to me if you're burdened. It could even more literally be translated this way: come to me, all of you who have overburdened yourselves. You've just taken on too much that you were actually not built or meant to carry. And so while the word weary indicates like a certain kind of physical weariness, the word burdened indicates a spiritual weariness. And like I said, I think that kind of covers the whole gamut of humanity, because at some point we're all going to experience a physical weariness. And I would argue at some point we all reach the end of the line where we have reached a spiritual weariness, and we're looking for an answer to help us carry things that we don't feel like we were meant to carry. And so Jesus' invitation to us is beautiful. Come to me, all of you who are physically weary, all of you who are spiritually weary, and I will give you rest. In other words, if you are a human being, come to me and I will give you rest. Now, it gets even more interesting because, we could hear that phrase, I will give you rest, and it could sound us like just a thing that he gives us. like an external thing that he gives us, like a tool to help us just get through it. Maybe in the form of sleep or like less work or maybe even a holiday. Like if we pray, Lord, would you just give me rest? Maybe we're thinking in those kind of terms, like I could just really use a day to sleep in or like a snow day or whatever. But that's not what the actual translation is. The actual translation isn't, I will give you rest, as though it was an external thing. The actual translation is, I will rest you. I will rest you. In other words, he isn't just desiring to give us something. He wants to give us himself. He wants to do in us and for us what a holiday can't, what sleeping in can't, what Netflix can't, what happy hour can't, even what a beautiful, amazing summer in Vancouver can't. Jesus can do what nothing else on planet Earth can do because he is the answer to that deepest restlessness inside of us. If you were here last week, you may have heard Izzy share a bit of her story. We got to ask her about her experience with Alpha, but I was thinking about her this week as I was preparing for our time together today, because I was so compelled by her story and what she shared. If you weren't here, Izzy didn't grow up having a faith background, and so she found herself just craving a deeper meaning to life. And so she tried, as many of us do, all manner of things to fill that void, to fill that like deep ache and restlessness inside of her. She tried traveling and moving cities and even changing careers. She tried different methods of things. She tried Reiki. And in her words, doing all of those things fell short because she still felt this sense of like restlessness, of longing for something she couldn't quite identify. And so she found herself a couple of years ago, she ended up moving to Bali in another effort to fill that longing. And she met a woman there, quite randomly, who shared with her about Jesus. And if we fast forward in her story, as we heard Izzy say, now it turns out she realizes that Jesus was and is the answer all along. That he filled that longing, that deep restlessness. He satisfied it in every way. He was the answer. Augustine says it this way, and Daniel quoted it last week, but it's worth re-quoting again. Augustine says it this way: you have made us for yourself, O Lord, and our heart is restless until it rests in you. And our hearts will be restless. They will only be temporarily satisfied by other things. Because every one of us, you and I, we were all designed with like that God-shaped puzzle piece, that God-shaped hole inside of us that is only meant to be filled by one person and one person alone, and it's Jesus Christ. And he desires to give us himself because true rest is first and foremost rest for our aching souls. Of course, I do believe that he wants to give us rest for like our anxious minds and our tired bodies. But the primary rest that he wants to give us is the kind that comes from choosing to surrender our lives to him. From choosing him as the puzzle piece that fits in our hearts. And if you're here and you can identify with that sense of restlessness, I think that many of us at some point hit that. And you've been searching and you've been looking for answers and you feel like you've just tried a whole lot of things and nothing's done it for you, nothing's satisfied you. I pray that you would hear this invitation today, and I've been praying this all week, that you would hear these words from Jesus, this invitation from him that he wants to rest you. He wants to give you himself. He wants to usher in the kind of peace that you have been looking for. He is the only one who truly can. He is the way, the truth, and the life, as John 14 tells us. He's it. And he invites you to come to him, and he will give you the rest of your life. So that's the first thing. Come to him. And the next thing that Jesus invites us to do is this: to take on his yoke. That's what he says in verse 29, take my yoke upon you and learn from me. So in case you don't know what a yoke is, I think we have a picture for you, but I'm a visual learner, I think it can help. So a yoke is fitted on the neck of oxen for the purpose of plowing or for pulling a cart behind them. It's generally made of wood, and it is usually hand-carved to fit the neck and the shoulders of the animals to prevent pain or discomfort. Now, as you can see in the picture, usually 2 oxen are chosen to share one yoke. Now, the first one is an older, seasoned ox. This one is trained, experienced, knows what to do, has years of routine under its belt. And then the second one that's connected is a younger ox and is inexperienced. Here's what one commentary I read said. It said, by sharing the same yoke, the seasoned, mature ox would naturally train the younger ox. Not only that, but the experienced one pulls harder to bear the majority of the load. Since the older one leads, the younger ox does not have to wonder what to do. He leans on his mentor and copies everything he does. Okay, in case we've missed it, you and I, we are the younger, inexperienced ox in this metaphor, and Jesus is the older, experienced one. He is the one who actually bears the majority of the load. He's the one that we're to lean on. He's the one whose lead we're to follow. And this is what happens when we come into Jesus' easy yoke. This is what he invites us into, because there is rest in leaning on him and in following his lead. And this is what an easy yoke means. It's that the burdens that we're shouldering aren't too heavy for us, and they're not ill-fitting, because Jesus is in there with us, pulling it along with us. And to be clear, an easy yoke doesn't mean our lives are suddenly easy. John Ortberg has this great line. He says that our souls were not made for an easy life. They were made for an easy yoke. An easy yoke means that we're connected to the one who knows the best way to shoulder the things that we've been entrusted with. He knows the best way to work out the questions in our lives, the questions that you have on a day-to-day basis. He knows the best way to work out that relationship that you're thinking through. He knows the best way to handle our finances. He knows the best way to parent our kids. He knows the best way to go about our jobs and the questions we have surrounding big life questions and dreams and should we move or should we not? And he knows the best way to live where we live and live in harmony with our neighbors. And he knows all of the intricacies of your exact situation, the things that you wrestle and struggle with. And I think that this is part of why his invitation to us is just so generous and beautiful. It's that in yoking ourselves and coming under his yoke and yoking ourselves to him, he will not only show us how to carry our loads, how to carry our burdens, but he will help us carry them in a way that doesn't deplete us and exhaust us, but actually gives us life and rest right in the middle of carrying it. So here Jesus says, take my yoke upon you and learn from me. And what is Jesus' yoke? It's his way of being and doing. It's his way of being in relationship with the Father, who's also our Father. It's the Jesus way of life. And there's so much we could say about that. This is just a little tip if you want it. One of the places that I often will go, and I'm like, man, how do I follow him in a practical way? I will often go to the Sermon on the Mount, and I'll read that, Matthew 5, 6, and 7. Or I'll just read the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and just observe not just what Jesus is saying, but his in-between moments. How is he living? And so we've looked at these 2 invitations from Jesus. Come to him and take on his yoke. And now I want to move into just offering what I hope are some practical suggestions for how we can actually do this. If you've heard me before, you'll know that the way my relationship with Scripture, I'm always reading it going, but how do we do it? Like, how do we actually do this thing? So I want to just offer up what I hope are really practical, tangible suggestions for how we can take on Jesus' yoke, how we can take on his way of being and doing in the world, okay? So there are only 3 things I want to highlight. These are 3 rhythms that we see in the life of Jesus in the New Testament. There are many, many more. I'm just picked 3 for the sake of time together today, okay? And if you've been around the way for a while, these won't be new to you. You will have heard some of these, but it's always good, I think, to rehear some of these again, okay? So how do we take on Jesus' easy yoke, his way of living and being? 3 suggestions. Here's the first one. Slow down. Slow down. If you read the 4 Gospels, one of the things that you will see in the life of Jesus is that he was just rarely in a hurry, if ever. He was not rushing from place to place. He was not stressed out. But here we are in the world we're living in over 2,000 years later, and our entire Western society is built around constant hurry and distraction. It is almost like a prized thing. Efficiency, efficiency, efficiency. Do more, multitask, multitask. And, the research is there. I don't have it all in front of me. I did this week as I was looking at it. But man, multitasking is a myth. The average Canadian employee receives 121 emails a day. That overwhelms me immediately. The average Canadian is on their phone over 6 hours and 18 minutes a day. This translates to approximately 94 full days a year. We get frustrated when our Wi-Fi is slow. You know what? As I was prepping for this talk this week, my Wi-Fi at our house, all of the, all the lines went down out near our house, and they were out for 2 days. And I was like, I couldn't even get data. There was no 5G. And I was like, is this a test? What's happening? I am so frustrated. I was so frustrated. We get frustrated when our Wi-Fi is slow or out, or we have to go to a coffee shop and use their Wi-Fi. We get irritated when we pick the slow line at the grocery store. Anybody else? We get annoyed when we change lanes on the freeway and the lane we were just moving in starts going faster. That happened to me today on my way to church. Again, I was like, what is happening? We will stop at McDonald's or Tim Hortons, or you name A&W, name your place of choice, not because it's necessarily good, but because it's fast. And this kind of hurried lifestyle, it can leak into the way we approach our relationship with God. Like, if this is the way we're living our everyday lives, then it can just shape the way that we interact with God, and it makes a lot of sense, I think. Because if we're constantly in a hurry, then it becomes very hard to just find a moment to sit down and spend time with the Lord and wait on him and talk to him. Because if something doesn't happen in 30 seconds, I'm out. I read it, did nothing for me, so bye. If we're constantly in a hurry, it can shape the way that we approach our walk with the Lord. John Ortberg, again, I quoted him a moment ago, but he calls this hurry sickness. This is what he says. He says, hurry is the great enemy of spiritual life in our day. Hurry is not just a disordered schedule. Hurry is a disordered heart. Now, I want to make a bit of a parenthesis here, okay? This does not mean we're never going to be busy. Jesus often had a lot to do, but the thing is he never did it in a way that severed the life-giving connection between him and the Father. He was often busy, but he was never hurried. And I also just want to say that this doesn't mean that we shouldn't work. Jesus worked. He did a lot of ministry. So what I'm not saying is that we would lean so hard into this idea of rest that we should shy away from anything that feels hard or feels costly or feels like work. Because there's a difference between working and overworking. There's a difference between saying yes and saying yes to too many things. So slow down. This is the big suggestion I'm throwing out to you, and some of you may have this dialed in. Awesome. But my suspicion is that many of us could use the reminder. Again, this week I needed the reminder, like, whoa, Elita, slow down. So a few practical ideas for just helping us to slow down. These are just take it or leave it, okay? Receive what makes sense in your life. One suggestion, deliberately put yourself in a place where you have to wait. So pick the slow lane on purpose. Put yourself in it. I've started doing this at the grocery store. I will pick the longest line at the grocery store, and I just tell myself, this is for my formation. It's for my formation. It's making me, I see that line going faster. I see you self-checkout, but I'm staying here. Drive the speed limit. Drive the speed limit. Maybe some of you do. Okay, anyways. Put your phone to bed at night. This is just a good life habit. Just get a real life alarm clock and put it next to you. Put your phone in the other room. Go on a walk. Get off social media for a period of time. Journal. These are just ideas, but slowing down, especially if we're prone to hurry, it's going to take time and cultivation. We just have so many tabs open in our brain. Just pick a few to try to close. Just try to close, and intentionally. You may have heard this anecdote before, this story before, but it's one of my favorites. Letty Cowman, she's a woman who wrote the Streams in the Desert devotional. It's kind of old. But she tells a story, and it's based in the early 1900s, of a man that she knew that went over to Africa. And again, this was early 1900s, it was before automobiles. And so he hired a crew to take his luggage and stuff. So the very first day, they traveled super far. They had a long way to go. It was going to be a many days long trip. First day, they traveled super far, got farther faster than they thought. And he was like, this is amazing. We're going to get there in record time. The next morning, he wakes up to get going, and all of his guides are sitting around a fire, just relaxing, chatting. And he was like, what's the deal? How come you guys aren't moving? And one of the guides said to him, yesterday, we traveled too far, too fast, and now we're waiting for our souls to catch up to our bodies. And I love that anecdote because I think that this is one of the things that slowing down can do for us. It just gives us time for our souls to catch up to our bodies. Like the things that we're doing can outpace our souls. Here's a second suggestion for how we could practically take on Jesus' easy yoke. We slow down. Second thing, we have a daily prayer rhythm. Again, these are just suggestions for you. This is another thing that we see over and over in the life of Jesus. If we were to read the 4 Gospels, we see that he was always getting away, and he was getting up early to pray and to spend time with his Father. Mark 1:35 records that very early in the morning, while it was still dark, Jesus got up, left the house, and went off to a solitary place where he prayed. Luke 15 also records that Jesus often withdrew to lonely places and he prayed. All 4 gospel accounts record small details like this. Jesus had a rhythm of meeting with his Father. That's what prayer is, of spending time with his Father. And so what I want to suggest to us is that if we're taking on Jesus' easy yoke, if we're attaching ourselves to him and we're going to live the way he's modeling for us, if we're going to live the way he lived in this world and be in this world the way he was, and this is something that I want to suggest is important for all of us as well, to spend time with the Father regularly. And it's going to look different for all of us. Please hear me. This is not prescriptive for you. It's going to look very different for all of us. You have to take into account season of life. Maybe you've got babies, or you've got to take into account your work schedule, health, all of these things. But I just want to offer some ideas for what a daily prayer rhythm can look like. Again, this is not prescriptive. This is just ideas. Get quiet. Try to find a quiet spot. get alone if possible, if you can. One of the most exciting things for me is seeing like all these like little babies around in the church right now. So moms, hear me, that you may not get alone for the next 5 years, and that's okay. You'll find it. You'll find your rhythm. Just find where you can, when you can. Read a psalm maybe, read scripture, journal if you want. That's how I do it, because y'all, when I pray, I get so distracted. I have to write it out so my mind can stay focused. And then pray. Talk to God. Tell him your thoughts, your observations. Man, the sunrise is beautiful this morning. Pray the Lord's Prayer. If praying is tricky for you, you don't know how to articulate it, the Lord's Prayer is a great place to start. Psalm 23. Find things that are sticky for you and that you can pray through. And finally, I would suggest when you pray to, at least for part of it, to wait. Maybe it could sound something like, "Come, Holy Spirit, would you speak to me?" And then just listen for what he might want to say to you. I know sometimes for me, the Lord will just drop a scripture into my mind or a person that I'm like, I'll latch onto that and start praying for that person. Not always. Sometimes I'll wait and I'm like, well, nothing really, I didn't have any thoughts or anything, but I'll still do it. It's still part of it. And as I said a moment ago, because I want to try to blow away the myth that any of us have this all figured out. I certainly don't. So for me, a lot of times in prayer and my time with the Lord, it is a battle to keep my mind focused. I am constantly fighting off distractions. I will be sitting there for 20 minutes and I realized I've done everything but pray, and that's fine. Rich Velotis, he's a pastor in New York, he once said this, and it just really helped me. He said, I get distracted 100 times in prayer every morning, but then I realize that that's 100 times I get to come back to Jesus and say again, "Here I am, Lord, I give you my attention." So when I heard that, I've adopted that now. And so even this morning, I was like over and over again, "Oh, okay, here I am, Lord, I give you my attention. Here I am, Lord, I give you my attention." So whatever a daily prayer rhythm looks like for you, I just want to encourage you to go after it, to just start somewhere, and it is a journey. So last suggestion for how we might take on Jesus' easy yoke, his way of being and living in the world, is this: to practice Sabbath. And Mike, if you're around, you can make your way up to the keys. Practice Sabbath. Again, if you've been around the church for a while, you would have heard us talk about this. And we did a whole series on some of these spiritual formations last fall when we did the Practicing the Way series, a whole Sunday about Sabbath. And so I'm not going to be exhaustive here, and you can go back and find that online if you're interested. But very simply, kind of the 30,000-foot view is that Sabbath is a word that means to stop or to cease. More specifically, it's like a 24-hour time period where we stop working, we stop striving, and it's just a time to rest in God. It's 1 day a week, 1 out of 7, to remind ourselves that God is holding the world together, not me and not you, not your work, not the things that you do. It's a day to trust that God is sovereign over the world. It's a day to delight in the giver of this good world. It's a day to play, a day to, sleep in if you want, if you can. It's a day to remember that God doesn't sleep, God doesn't stop, and so you actually can. So again, what can practicing Sabbath look like? This is not a prescriptive, this is just some suggestions. Eat foods that you love. Like treat it almost like, my husband and I often talk about it being like Christmas Day, 1 day a week. Like eat the things that you love. Listen to music that moves your soul. Read a book that sparks your imagination. Feast with friends. Be in community. Surround yourself with beauty. Go on a hike, Go be with the bears and the cougars. Whatever delights your soul, do that thing. And that's different for all of us. And I love that it's so unique that Sabbath for all of us can look so wildly different because we're all going to feel delight in very different things. But here's the thing, is that as you do these on Sabbath, Allow all of these things to direct your heart toward God in gratitude. Because these things in and of themselves are not the things that give us rest. If that's how we approach it, they'll just deplete us again. But all of these things actually point us to the rest giver. And so when we turn these things into forms of worship, God, thank you for these friends. Thank you that we can feast. Thank you for this good food. Thank you for the person that created cinnamon buns. Thank you for this beautiful sunrise and sunset. Thank you for the Pacific Northwest. Thank you for the rain that makes it so green and beautiful here. Thank you. Last thing I just want to note here is to start where you are and not where you wish you were. Like, don't let this become an extra burden for you that you're trying to carry around. There's so many factors. To start where you are, not where you wish you were. It'll take time to cultivate these things. And particularly with Sabbath, I know people who don't do it for 24 hours. They start with like a morning Sabbath for a couple hours or like a half day or just an evening. People who have kids, like, take that into account. There's so many ways. So start where you are and not where you wish you were. And that's true for all of it, slowing down, prayer, Sabbath. And as we close now, I just want to repeat the question that I started with. Could it be that we were made for a deeper kind of rest than anything the world could give us? And the answer is, of course, yes. That's where we've been going this whole time. And Jesus invites us to experience this rest by coming to him. And maybe for some of us, that's for the very first time. I've been thinking a lot this week about the woman at the well who was so thirsty. And Jesus said to her, I will give you water that will make you never thirst again. And I don't know if that's for some of you, but this is the idea of like, yes, Jesus wants to give us something that is going to satisfy us in a way nothing else could. So maybe that's you for the first time, coming to Jesus and responding to him and to his invitation. And for others of us, maybe it's for the 1,000th time. Like, we know this. We know that he's the place that we find rest, but we've tried to fill it in with other things. And maybe the invitation for you today is just to remember again that, nope, not that, not that, not that, not that. It is him alone who can give us the rest that we need. So come to him. Take on Jesus' easy yoke. And friends, we will find the rest that we were made for, designed for. I want to invite you, before Chris comes to lead us in response, if you're comfortable, I'm just going to invite you to close your eyes for a moment. I want to read to you Matthew 11 again, but this time I'm going to read it from the Message version of the Bible. So just receive this for your souls. Are you tired, worn out, burned out on religion? Come to me. Get away with me, and you'll recover your life. I'll show you how to take a real rest. Walk with me and work with me. Watch how I do it. Learn the unforced rhythms of grace. I won't lay anything heavy or ill-fitting on you. Keep company with me, and you will learn to live freely and lightly.
Well, we hope today's message was encouraging for you. And if you want to hear more or connect into the life of the church, you can find out all of the information at thewaychurch.ca, and we would love to hear from you.